Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you. Thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. And today I'll be taking a look at a pretty special little release coming to us out of Heaven Hill Distillery. It is the Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond Decanter. It is 13 years old for the spring of 2019 release. Retail pricing on it's going to be about $130, which is a little more than the previous two releases from last year, the spring and fall, which happened to be like a 9 and 11-year-old. Now, other than the 9/11 and this 13, there was one other release of it that was a distillery only type release, and it was a 14-year-old. And I was fortunate enough to get to taste that one when I was in Kentucky last year. And that one to date had been my favorite. Okay, the 14 is fantastic. The 9 and 11, I was speaking to a buddy the other day, and we were talking about how the 9 and 11, we preferred the 9, but it took a little time to oxidize and really get better. Even the 11 got better. So neither one of those, what I consider bad bourbons, they just needed a little more time to open up. So this one has been open about 4 to 5 days. It just hit Texas within the last week. I was fortunate enough to be able to pick it up. I rather enjoyed it, so I decided I wanted to get this video shot and out to you, my viewers. Now, I am going to be releasing this video on both YouTube and Patreon, but my Patreon supporters are going to get the head start on it. Okay, I'm going to release it to them a few days early. The other thing to note on Patreon, if you're not familiar, is I'm doing pretty much a video a week over there. I review, again, all types of spirits. It's just that on YouTube, I can only get to it about once a month or so. This is actually going to be like a bonus video for YouTube, but, you know, join me over there doing tons of reviews, and you'll get the heads up on special releases. All right, now, Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond Decanter. The decanter itself is beautiful. I mean, if you haven't seen this up close, it is pretty fantastic. One of the best bottles out there that I've seen. Probably look good on anybody's bar, no matter if you've just got 2 bottles or if you've got, you know, hundreds of bottles. This is going to stand out. The other thing to note on it is that, again, 13 years, that's starting to hit that point where you have to start worrying about, you know, is it becoming too much wood? 13, 15 right there is about this, you know, 10 to 15 is that sweet spot for bourbon. So we're going to see if this one held in there, all right? All right. I think I talked about the mash bill, right? 68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% barley. All right, on the nose. Nice, pretty nice little nose. Brown sugar, caramel, sweetness. Comes off pretty sweet. It's a lot of rich mixed red fruits. Dark fruits as well. There's almost like a dried fig, prune element going on in here as well. It's got a lot of depth. I pick up some citrus oils in here. More orange oil, cinnamon, a little clove as well. Baking spices, that's pretty much what I would almost call it a combination of baking and mulling spices, because that dried orange peel, the orange oil element, kind of reminds me of the mulling spices altogether. Boy, but there's also a really big, rich combination of oak and leather and cocoa powder, and a little bit of a little twinge of a roasted nut element going on. Overall, pretty complex for the nose. 13 years old, 100 proof. All right, let's go ahead and taste it and see what we think as far as viscosity and everything else. Okay. Different flavors dropping in. Little transitions. All right, let's go to the real taste here. Running it over my palate. Check the viscosity. Viscosity is medium, just above medium. It is pretty rich and oily. Wow, big cinnamon swell. When it enters, you get that brown sugar, a little bit of caramel type sweetness going on. You get that dried fruits mixed with mixed berries kind of coming in as well. And the mixed berries are definitely mixed, because that's too, you can tell they're in there, but you don't like pick out like, oh, there's a big cherry note or there's a big strawberry note. It's just mixed. But there is dried fruits in there because I am picking out, like, that dried fig element is definitely in here as well. Almost like a fig Newton, but not quite that harsh or big in flavor. But as the mid palate arrives, that's when that cinnamon and clove, all those baking and mulling spices really start to kind of ramp up, specifically the cinnamon. Cinnamon really drives and gets pretty sharp right down the mid palate. So back up, right up front, it all comes in almost together really fast. You get a lot of brown sugar caramel, the mixed berries, the peanut, that Heaven Hill peanut element. It's kind of like a roasted peanut. Comes on early as well. It's not super big. It doesn't feel out of balance, but it is noticeable up front. And then it starts all kind of going together, ramps up with that cinnamon heat on the mid palate, a little clove underneath that. Those mulling spices, that dried orange peel lingering on the finish, because as soon as it hits the highest peak on the mid palate and it starts to kind of start rolling over and coming down, that's when you start picking up loads of rich cocoa powder and leather, and it's old leather coming on. Sweet, rich, oak resin just lingering into the finish. A little bit of wow, what is that? It's cocoa powder, but it's also mixed with that oak and leather. It almost feels like a roasted nut, almost a roasted coffee bean, like a very faint roasted coffee bean on the back end. I guess you know what I would call that actually? Maybe like cacao nibs on the back end. It's very faint, but beautiful. The way it enters and kind of just peaks out at the very back end. All right, let's try that one more time just to make sure. As I always say, more research. Wow. Yeah. All right, starting to get, yeah, it's melting a lot easier. Again, that first sip, you kind of hit, your palate's kind of shocked immediately. 100 proof, it's not super low, but it's not super high either, but still it's enough to kind of shock the palate. And so the cinnamon was coming off really sharp and strong. Now, a few sips in, I'm starting to notice it mellow out. You're starting to get more of that brown sugar lingering, kind of helping that cinnamon. While it does swell on the mid palate, it's not as sharp as it was initially. All the flavors are melding a little better. Yeah, again, that orange peel, the cocoa powder, the leather, man, those are just great on the back end. And of course the oak. The oak is definitely there, but this isn't over oaked. Matter of fact, I would say this thing could have gone one more year in the barrel and been just fine. But I'm curious to see how it's going to open up, because like I mentioned earlier in the video, the 9 and 11 really started getting better the more they oxidize. So now that I've got it right there about the shoulder, I'm not going to gas it. I'm going to let it sit there and just keep getting a little better. And as probably in another month or so, it'll probably get a little softer and balance a little more. But overall, I think it's a great buy. If you happen to see it out there for $130, snatch it up. If some places like to sell them for secondary pricing, so you might see it for $300 to $350. That's where it starts getting really hard for me. To be honest, at $300, I might pull the trigger on this 13-year-old. A, it's a beautiful decanter. B, the bourbon inside it is very solid, very good bourbon. It's not the best. It's not, some of the best sweeteners out there in the world, like, William LaRue. It's nothing like that. But for a good, great, nice pour of a wheater bourbon, this is a solid choice. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, feel free to join me over on Facebook, LiquorHound, Instagram, The LiquorHound. LiquorHound was taken, man. What am I going to do? And of course, join me at Patreon, patreon.com/LiquorHound for more reviews like this. Thank y'all for leaving all those great comments. Everybody have a great day, and cheers.